The storm came without warning, a wall of white sweeping across the Arizona desert, burying the red earth beneath a savage tide of snow. The year was 1876, and the mountains had never known such cold. The sky was gray as iron, the wind slicing like a knife. John Mercer hunched low in his saddle, his thick wool coat crusted with frost, his horse trembling beneath him. He had been riding for hours, days, perhaps. He no longer kept track. The cold bit into his bones, gnawing at what little strength he had left. He wasn't sure where he was going anymore. All he knew was that he couldn't stop. If he stopped, he'd die. Through the white blur of the storm, something flickered, a faint orange glow in the distance, a fire. He blinked twice, wondering if it was a trick of his frozen mind. But there it was again, pulsing weakly against the darkness. Hope. Kicking his horse into a slow trot, he made his way toward the light. The snow thickened, the wind screamed in his ears, but the glow grew brighter. When he reached the edge of a rocky canyon, he saw her. She was huddled beside a dying fire, her body wrapped in torn animal skins, her long black hair stiff with frost. Her face was thin, her lips pale, her eyes wild with fear and exhaustion. She looked up when he approached, instinctively reaching for the small knife at her side. "Easy," John said hoarsely, raising his hands. His voice was cracked, barely more than a whisper. "I mean no harm." The woman hesitated, her hand trembling. Then she dropped the knife and sank to her knees beside the fire. "Please," she whispered, her voice broken and raw. "Don't leave me to freeze. I'll give you a warm bed every night." John froze, the words cutting through him like the wind. There was no lust in her tone, only desperation, a will to live. Her fingers were bleeding from the cold, her breath shallow. Slowly, he climbed down from his horse and knelt beside her. Without a word, he threw his worn blanket over her shoulders and fed the fire with what little wood he had. For the first time that winter, the flames rose higher, and two strangers, a lost soldier and a dying woman, found fragile warmth in the heart of the storm. The storm raged through the night, screaming against the canyon walls like a chorus of ghosts. But within their small circle of firelight, there was stillness, a fragile peace carved out of the frozen world around them. John Mercer sat cross-legged near the flames, his rifle resting by his knee. Across from him, the Apache woman wrapped herself in his wool blanket, her body trembling less with each passing minute. Her skin glowed softly in the fire's orange light, her face marked by exhaustion and silent strength. He offered her a strip of dried venison. She took it carefully, her fingers brushing his gloved hand, light as snowflakes. "My name is Nokomis," she said after a long silence, her voice low and steady, though her eyes revealed sorrow too deep for words. John nodded. "Mercer," he replied simply. Names didn't matter much out here. But something about hers stayed with him, echoing in his chest like a memory. She stared into the fire, then spoke again. "The soldiers came at dawn," she said, her tone flat, almost detached. "They burned our homes, took our horses. My father tried to fight. They shot him. My brother, he ran back for my mother. They shot him too." Jean's jaw tightened. He didn't need to ask which soldiers she meant. He had ridden with men like them. Men who called themselves heroes for slaughtering families in the name of peace. The guilt pressed on his heart like ice. "I've been walking 3 days," Nokomis continued. "No food, no fire. I thought the mountain spirits would take me tonight." She looked at him with dark, unreadable eyes. "But you came." John poked the fire with a stick, avoiding her gaze. "Don't thank me," he muttered. "I've done enough wrongs to fill 10 lifetimes." Silence fell between them, broken only by the crackle of the flames. Then Nokomis moved closer, the blanket slipping slightly from her shoulder. "You're not like them," she said softly. "I see it in your eyes." John wanted to deny it, but he couldn't. Her words touched something raw inside him, something long buried. As she leaned gently against his arm for warmth, the snow outside began to ease, and for the first time in years, John felt something he thought he'd lost forever. He felt human again. The dawn came quietly, painting the snow in shades of pink and silver. Smoke rose from the dying fire as John Mercer tightened his saddle straps, preparing to leave before the sun fully broke over the horizon. Nokomi stood a few feet away, her blanket draped over her shoulders, her dark hair loose in the cold morning breeze. "Where will you go?" she asked softly. John hesitated. "North," he said. "There's an old mining camp. Maybe I'll find work there." She looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "And me?" He opened his mouth to answer, but the sound that came next froze them both, the distant thunder of hooves. Dozens of them. The rhythmic pounding echoed off the canyon walls, growing louder every second. John's stomach turned to stone. He recognized that sound, the discipline of soldiers, not drifters. He grabbed his rifle and scanned the ridge above. Moments later, shapes emerged from the swirling snow. Blue coats, rifles gleaming, and at their head rode Captain Harris, his former commander. "Well, I'll be damned," Harris called, his breath steaming in the cold. John Mercer, deserter, outlaw, and now hiding with one of them. He spat the last word like poison. Nokomi stepped back, clutching the blanket tighter. Harris noticed her and sneered. "She's Apache." "You know the orders, Mercer. No survivors." John's pulse pounded in his ears. He raised his hand slowly. "She's not your enemy, Captain. She's just trying to live." "Every one of them's an enemy," Harris barked, dismounting. "Step aside before I forget we ever served together." John didn't move. His rifle stayed at his side, but his grip tightened. "No, sir, not this time." Harris's expression darkened. "So that's how it is." John's answer was silence, the kind that speaks louder than words. The captain drew his pistol. The wind died. The world seemed to hold its breath. Two men faced each other, ghosts of a bloody past standing between them. A single gunshot cracked through the canyon. Snow burst into the air as Harris stumbled backward, clutching his chest. His men froze, uncertain, and then one by one they turned and rode off, their horses disappearing into the white horizon. John stood trembling, smoke curling from his rifle barrel. Behind him, Nokomis whispered his name, not in fear, but in something that sounded like sorrow and gratitude entwined. The canyon was silent once more. The echo of gunfire had faded, leaving only the wind sighing through the pines. Snowflakes drifted lazily from the pale sky, soft and harmless now, as if the storm had finally tired of its rage. John stood still, the rifle loose in his trembling hands. Captain Harris lay motionless in the snow, his blue coat already dusted white. For a long moment, John could only stare at the body of the man who had once led him, the man who had shaped so much of his guilt. Then slowly he knelt and closed the captain's eyes. "You should have stopped fighting," he murmured. "We all should have." Behind him, Nokomis approached quietly. She didn't speak. She simply laid a gentle hand on his shoulder. Her touch was light, grounding him more than any word could. Together, they turned from the fallen soldier and walked back to their camp. By nightfall, the fire was burning again, brighter this time, stronger. John sat near it, his arm wrapped in a makeshift bandage where a bullet had grazed him. Nokomis worked silently beside him, grinding herbs and pressing them into the wound. The air smelled faintly of sage and smoke. "You could have left," she said softly without looking up. "When they came, you could have run." He gave a faint, weary smile. "So could you." For a long time, neither spoke. The crackle of the fire and the whisper of the wind were their only companions. Then Nokomis moved closer, her blanket brushing his arm. "You're not like the others," she whispered. "You saw me as human." John met her gaze, his blue eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "You reminded me what that means," he said quietly. A silence passed, not the cold silence of loneliness, but the soft one that comes before understanding. Nokomis lay beside him, sharing her warmth beneath the same blanket. She rested her head lightly against his shoulder and whispered, almost to herself, "I told you. I'd give you a warm bed every night." John's chest rose and fell in rhythm with hers. Outside, the snow began to melt under the morning sun. The world was still harsh and cruel, but for the first time in years, John Mercer believed there might be a place for forgiveness, and a future built not on war but on warmth.